Hello and welcome to NTD News. I'm Evelyn Lee and here are today's top stories. President Biden meeting with Afghanistan's leader this week to discuss the U.S. troop drawdown. What kind of support is the U.S. offering and what does a former Afghan president have to say? A group of Republican congressmen tell Biden it's time to fire Vice President Kamala Harris from her job leading the administration's response to the border crisis. Harris hasn't visited the border yet, and the number of illegal immigrants crossing the border continues to skyrocket. The U.S. military reinstates a diversity officer who was investigated over social media posts comparing former President Trump to Adolf Hitler. Richard Torres Estrada can now resume his role as Chief of Diversity and Inclusion for the U.S. Special Operations Command. And a horrific accident on Saturday claims the lives of 9 children and 1 adult in Alabama. This as Tropical Depression Claudette hit the region with strong winds and rain. President Biden is meeting with Afghanistan's president this week as U.S. forces leave the country. An Afghan official says they want to make sure the U.S. will continue supporting Afghan security forces in the aftermath. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
President Biden meeting Afghan President Ashraf Ghani Friday at the White House to discuss U.S. troop withdrawal. The White House says Biden will reassure Ghani of U.S. support, including diplomatic, economic, and humanitarian assistance. It says the U.S. will also help to make sure the country won't become a safe haven for terrorist groups. And Afghanistan's former president, Hamid Karzai, said he thinks the country will be better off without the U.S. and NATO's military presence.
I think we should defend our own country and look after our own lives. No, their presence is what we have now. So we don't want what we have now. At least we will know who to blame then when they're not here.
In April, Biden decided to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan by September 11th. Since then, the Taliban terrorist group has taken at least 30 districts.
They're leaving behind a country in conflict.
Members of one refugee family in Pakistan say they don't want to return home, even though U.S. forces are leaving.
We have witnessed several people who returned from Afghanistan informing us about the plight of people in the country because the war is still going on there.
Right now, one expert says nearly 3 million Afghan refugees live in Pakistan, and they're expecting a new emergence of Taliban extremists after U.S. forces leave.
We are hearing the news that militants are again controlling some areas, so we are expecting a new exodus of Afghan refugees headed toward Pakistan.
Although Karzai's had harsh words for the U.S. in Afghanistan, he's optimistic about the future.
This is the country of the Afghan people, and therefore the responsibility is upon us to work for our people, to work for peace, and to do a million times more than those from abroad are doing for us.
Officials say the Taliban hasn't offered a written peace proposal yet that could be used as a starting point for substantial peace talks. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The United States' new top envoy for North Korea says he looks forward to a positive response from North Korea soon about arranging a meeting. He's currently in South Korea, Seoul.
Days after North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un said to prepare for confrontation but also dialogue with the United States, on Monday the new top U.S. envoy to Pyongyang, Sung Kim, said he hopes for a positive response soon on talks with the North. Ambassador Kim is in South Korea for a 5-day visit as denuclearization talks with Pyongyang have stalled.
We are still waiting to hear back from Pyongyang on our proposal for a meeting, and hopefully Chairman Kim's reference to dialogue indicates that we would get a positive response soon.
In the meantime, Kim said the U.S. will continue to enforce UN Security Council resolutions imposing sanctions on North Korea and urged other countries to do the same. Kim, who doubles as ambassador to Indonesia, held back-to-back meetings with South Korea's top nuclear envoy, No Kyu-duk, as well as trilateral talks with Japanese counterpart Takehiro Funakoshi. His appointment came after the Biden administration announced it would seek, quote, calibrated and practical ways of prompting Pyongyang to give up its nuclear weapons. Washington said Sunday it saw Kim Jong-un's latest comments as an interesting signal, but added they were still waiting for direct communication from Pyongyang regarding denuclearization.
The U.S. is following Canada's action from Friday to restrict non-essential travel across the northern border until July 21st. On Sunday, the Department of Homeland Security extended pandemic-driven non-essential travel restrictions. The move applies to border crossings from both Canada and Mexico. In March 2020, the U.S. and Canada mutually agreed to close the border to help prevent virus spread. It's unclear whether the restrictions will extend beyond July 21st or how they'll impact travel by land or ferry between the U.S. and Canada or Mexico. In a tweet, the Department of Homeland Security noted positive developments, saying that as progress is made, restrictions may be eased safely and sustainably. Over 50 Republican congressmen wrote to President Biden telling him to find someone new to solve the crisis on the southern U.S. border. They say the leader needs to speak with the people who are dealing with the crisis firsthand.
Congressman Glenn Grothman sent a letter to President Biden telling him to fire Vice President Kamala Harris from her role to stop the crisis on the southern U.S. border. 55 of his Republican colleagues signed on to the letter. They say it's been almost 3 months since Harris was assigned to solve the crisis, but she hasn't visited the border yet. And Customs and Border Protection had over 180,000 encounters in May, an increase of 675% from the same month last year. They say it's important for a leader to meet with the people dealing with the crisis firsthand in order to really understand what's happening.
We've been to the border.
Harris continues to brush off questions about why she hasn't been to the border. She says she's been to the border before, and she's working to develop the economies in southern Mexico and Central American countries to deal with the root cause of the crisis. Harris visited Mexico and Guatemala earlier this month. She says the White House is seeking to boost economic development in the region. The letter from Republicans says her explanation ignores how policy changes made by the Biden administration have enticed migrants to the border. They say many of the migrants themselves are saying they came because the Biden administration promised to let them in. Harris hasn't announced when she'll visit the border.
A U.S. military officer who compared former President Trump to Adolf Hitler resumes his role as a diversity and inclusion officer. An investigation found that he did not violate any Department of Defense policies.
Richard Torres Estrada has been reinstated as the Chief of Diversity and Inclusion for the U.S. Special Operations Command. Torres Estrada was investigated for making Facebook posts comparing former President Trump to Adolf Hitler and other radical social media posts. The U.S. military cleared him to resume his job. When Torres Estrada was hired in March, officials told the Epoch Times that they weren't aware of the posts. Fox host Tucker Carlson lambasted him over his social media posts. Carlson says that Torres Estrada posted BLM propaganda and attacks on police, in addition to anti-Trump posts. Carlson said, if you're wondering whether our military leadership has gone woke, consider that question settled for good. The Pentagon is now the Yale Faculty Lounge, but with cruise missiles. That should concern you. Members of Congress criticized the decision to hire him. Congressman Vern Buchanan tweeted, "What do you think? Will a diversity and inclusion officer for our elite military units make America stronger? Or are China and Russia laughing at us?" Congressman Bill Johnson said he was shocked by the hiring. A military spokesman tells news outlets U.S. SOCOM is confident in the hiring process and Mr. Torres Estrada's potential to fulfill his important position. Investigators report that the post did not violate any policies of the Department of Defense.
A devastating crash on a storm-drenched highway in Alabama took the lives of 9 children and 1 adult. NTD's Christina Kim reports.
A horrific accident in Alabama on Saturday took the lives of 8 children between the ages of 4 and 17. They were from a youth home for abused or neglected children called Tallapoosa County Girls Ranch. The accident also claimed the lives of 29-year-old Cody Fox and his 9-month-old daughter Ariana, who were in a separate vehicle. Fox's co-worker said he ran a hot tub business with his father and that he was a doting father himself. His daughter was his life. Multiple people were injured as well. The director of the youth ranch was the sole survivor.
She was trapped in the van. She was unconscious, and they were able to pull her from the van, and her life was saved.
The multi-car accident involved at least 15 vehicles on Interstate 65 south of Montgomery. Butler County Coroner Wayne Garlick said it's likely the cars hydroplaned on the wet roads, and the site of the accident is notorious for hydroplaning. This as Tropical Depression Claudette brought torrential rain and wind to the area. Claudette regained strength back up to a tropical storm on Monday as it heads towards the Atlantic Ocean. A GoFundMe account was set up for Tallapoosa County Girls Ranch to help with funeral expenses, medical costs, and counseling for those affected by the crash. The CEO of the group met with the youth director, who is in the hospital.
And she said, please tell my girls I love them. She still cares about the girls that are here at the ranch, and we're grieving right now.
Alabama's Governor Kay Ivey said her heart goes out to the loved ones of all who perished. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And Alabama's governor just declared a state of emergency over the tropical storm. While she announced it today, it's retroactive, making the state of emergency start on Friday, June 18th. She says this is to make sure affected areas have enough resources to deal with the storm. First responders report a near miss in Atlanta, Georgia. That's after a large oak tree and power lines fell on one woman's car early Sunday morning. Atlanta Fire and Rescue said the heavy oak limbs barely missed her head. The woman was trapped in her Lexus until firefighters pulled her out. She was hospitalized with minor injuries. A neighbor said the woman was driving up the street when a massive oak unexpectedly collapsed on top of her car. Colorado Governor Jared Polis signed several new gun control bills over the weekend, including one that allows cities to set their own gun regulations. The NRA says this will create a confusing patchwork of laws that are difficult to follow. Polis also signed bills to tighten background checks and create an education campaign around firearms. A flurry of gun control legislation started earlier this year in Colorado after a Syrian-born man allegedly shot and killed 10 people in a supermarket, including a police officer. Colorado Senate Majority Leader Stephen Fenberg says the new laws are about pain, loss, and trauma. He says he expects more gun control laws will be introduced. The NRA says the legislature passed the laws over the objections of thousands of people who support the Second Amendment. And Mark McCloskey and his wife are back at the gun shop. That's after the couple pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges, and officials confiscated his firearm that he held as Black Lives Matter protesters entered his neighborhood. He spoke to Newsmax about the situation.
Just to be clear, you still have guns, though, right? I mean, that wasn't the only.
Oh no, God, yes, I still have guns, and I'm going to go out and buy another AR as soon as the HF cleans up my record. Now that I'm not under indictment anymore.
McCloskey posted pictures to Twitter of him and his wife inside of a gun shop. A court ordered the guns from the now famous video to be melted down. McCloskey says he would have preferred to donate or auction the rifle because it holds some historical value. McCloskey says he pled guilty to keep St. Louis from having to bear the expenses of lengthy court proceedings. He said he is now focused on his Senate run. The U.S. Navy released footage of a full ship shock trial taking place next to one of the newest and largest aircraft carriers in the world. Video shows a large explosion next to the 100,000-ton USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier off the U.S.'s east coast on Friday. The United States Geological Survey recorded the explosion as a 3.9 magnitude earthquake about 100 miles off the coast of Florida. The U.S. Navy says it conducts trials using live explosives to make sure their warships can continue meeting demanding mission requirements under the harsh conditions they might encounter in battle. And up next, American Airlines plans to cancel some flights next month. This as the airline is struggling to keep up with travel demand because of weather and manpower shortages. Tracking birds just got easier. A new Icarus tag could give bird watchers a better grasp on migration patterns and their connection with mankind. Find out more in just a moment on NTD News. New York City's iconic Madison Square Garden is coming back to life. The venue held its very first concert since the start of the pandemic. The Foo Fighters performed to a packed stadium on Sunday. While the venue did not restrict the numbers of patrons, only those fully vaccinated against COVID could get in. It is Madison Square Garden's first concert in 460 days, and masks were not required. Fans got a little surprised too. Comedian Dave Chappelle came on stage to sing a song with the band. American Airlines is canceling some of its July flights. More people are traveling, and some of the airline's hubs just don't have the manpower needed. They say recent bad weather is also adding strain to their operations.
American Airlines said on Sunday it would cut back some flights in July, even though it's seen demand for air travel suddenly rise. An increase in U.S. vaccination rates and the easing of travel restrictions in recent weeks seem to have helped a surprise uptick in travel. But the unexpected resurgence has put a strain on American Airlines operations. The airline said that unprecedented weather has caused multi-hour delays over the past few weeks, disrupting flight and crew working hours. It also said it is dealing with labor shortages at some of its hub airports. On Sunday, the company said it will cancel about 1% of flights next month. In a statement, it said the move would, quote, minimize surprises at the airport. The company also said it would be adjusting flights in markets that had multiple options for reaccommodation to minimize the impact to customers. According to the U.S. Transportation Security Administration, nearly 50 million airport passengers were registered in May. That's up 19% from April. Already in June, the TSA has registered 35 million air passengers so far.
Royal Caribbean International is taking small steps for the cruise industry. On Sunday, the ship Freedom of the Seas embarked on a simulated voyage from Port Miami.
There is a certain element where there's a certain percentage that we can handle, and if certain individuals do not want to get vaccinated, we do strongly recommend all the guests to be vaccinated, that's for sure, for those who are eligible. But we have measures in place to keep the cruises safe.
Company officials say the two-day jaunt with volunteer passengers will serve as a way to observe what's called multi-layered health and safety measures set by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The cruise industry has been shut down for about 15 months due to the pandemic. In a statement, Royal Caribbean says this voyage is a major step toward making cruises possible for Americans looking to hit the seas again for a vacation. Technology is moving forward, and it's giving researchers a better bird's-eye view of robin migration patterns. Here's more on why these songbirds are getting a new kind of tag.
Georgetown University student Emily Williams is in Tacoma Park.
Hopefully we'll catch some robins.
She's a bird researcher looking to tag songbirds with new technology that looks like a tiny little backpack.
This technology is super cool and really helpful for robins because this tag remotely transmits locations to a central database that you can download those locations.
Precise tracking too. Before, these trackers would mark locations within 125 miles. Now, they're tracking movement within 30 feet. And sure enough, they catch a robin, attach the tech, and let him go. Professor Peter Mara is director at the university's Environment Initiative. He says this isn't just about understanding the bird's mysterious migration patterns.
We're trying to understand why they migrate, where they migrate, what the drivers of migration are. And it's fundamental information for a species this common to understand that sort of thing if we hope to understand how they might be responding to various forces of environmental change, such as climate.
How pollution and habitat loss affect these birds.
We are trying to establish the Internet of Animals.
Other researchers like Martin Wachowski of the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior say they want a digital map of sorts.
And that really capitalizes on the collective behavior, the swarm intelligence of animals. And that can tell us, for example, where is climate change most dramatic? It can tell us where diseases are hiding, but also where diseases are spreading.
These Icarus tracker tags work with a new antenna that the International Space Station turned on this spring.
Coming up, patients suffering from long-term CCP virus symptoms have a new option. They can recuperate in facilities in the beautiful Swiss Alps. That and more on NTV News. treasure found in the trash in Germany. Police are trying to find out how these paintings ended up in a highway rest stop dumpster. A 64-year-old man discovered them last month and turned them over to police. An art expert says the framed oil paintings are likely 17th century originals. One of the paintings is of a boy by Dutch artist Samuel van Hoogstraten. The other is a smiling self-portrait of Italian artist Pietro Bellotti dating back to 1665. Authorities have launched a search for the owner of the paintings. And the Alpine sanatoriums of Switzerland are catering to the rich and famous. Now some are using the upmarket clinics to treat the lingering effects of the CCP virus, and it's covered by private health insurance.
If you see patients from the acute clinic coming here, they are really fatigued, very limited in their physical activities. So this environment here with woods and ways to go around the clinic really helps them to get on their way back to normality.
That was Dr. Mark Spielmans, the medical director of Clinic Wald in the beautiful Swiss Alps. It's one of several clinics and hospitals here that, as the coronavirus pandemic drags on, have started to take in patients suffering from so-called long COVID. The condition that some COVID patients suffer, where the effects of the disease, both physical and mental, can drag long after most others recover. These posh mountain rehab facilities have long catered to the rich and famous for other conditions, but it's now hoped that with the sunshine, fresh air, and peace and quiet, that they can help the path to recovery for long COVID in a way that regular outpatient care cannot. And the cost is usually covered by Switzerland's private health insurance system, about $28,000 for a 4 to 6 week stay at Spielmans.
With the pandemic, just the shift to infectious disease happens, and this is not a big deal for us in the rehabilitation setting. We have patients with acute diseases coming from intensive care units directly in the rehabilitation, since acute hospitals don't manage them with the needs the patient actually have.
There aren't many COVID patients yet. Dr. Spielmans says only a handful of his 158 beds are booked for it, but the numbers seem to be rising. Another clinic on the Italian side of the Alps says it's cared for about 100. At the Hotchgebergs clinic, we met a Swiss Army officer who checked in.
I got infected last year in autumn.
Long COVID, he says, is debilitating.
The main stuff was really the head. So COVID took a little part of my lung and a big part of my brain. The symptoms was mainly, we call it brain fog. Okay. I was not capable to read anything, not even watching TV. I got a serious problem also with breathing, so with breathing. Walking upstairs 2 levels, completely down.
It's the latest chapter in a long, fascinating history for these clinics, some of which date to the 1800s. They started as tuberculosis centers for the wealthy, romanticized in the novel The Magic Mountain, and now have a new health problem to tackle.
And that's it for now. You can catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Evelyn Lee.